Do you believe in miracles? We got Fizzle in the house. Fizzle, what's good, man? Fizzle, glad to have you here.
Let's go. This the South Harmon Podcast. Glad you here today. Hit that Patreon link if you here to stay. Dynasty best ball, that's my favorite way. 40 chess trade show. Let's make a trade today or check a AMA. You know Adam at the ATM. Mike always in the building. He gon' stay with him. They gon' start every show off with their own trade. Fantasy's a big ocean. They made their own wave. Make sure you tapping in Tuesdays and Saturdays. Tuesday night, Saturday morning, ain't no better way. Hit that notification bell when the news break. Go subscribe right now, don't get the news late. Destination Devy, that's the team. Dynasty Football, man, that's my favorite thing. I remember Biggie said it was all a dream. Now people watching on their phones and computer screens. Welcome to the team.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back into another episode of the 4D Chess Dynasty Trade Show. As you can see, Mike's gallivanting again. You saw him for 16, 18 hours, whatever it was, over on the Destination Devy stream. Appreciate everybody tapping in over there, supporting us. It was a great time. But, he's got class now. He's a shithead, so he's got to go to class. He's not here, but we got Brandon. Brandon from Destination Devy, who you guys all know well by now. All the Savage team members know he's always there every week for a Savage semester. So, Brandon, appreciate you hopping in. How you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm doing well. Good to jump in again, be on the trade show. Sorry that I can't come in with Mike. I was a little disappointed that he's not here, but I'll try to do the best to fill the big man seat.
Yeah, man, it's big shoes to fill. And Mike is not here. It would have been nice to have Mike here, but nonetheless, we're going to keep going on without him this week. He will be back next week, and moving forward now that the trade show, like we talked about, will be 2 weeks. I'm sorry, not 2 weeks, 2 episodes every week now. But, with the draft going on, we didn't want to start rolling out too much before we could handle it. So, Brandon, you know how we do it here, man. We start off with one of our own, and it's the trade you've already seen. So I'm kind of curious your thoughts on this one. Royal Rumble trade with Ray GQ himself today took place. Let's talk about it. What is your thoughts on this trade? Let's go ahead and get into it. Ray and myself made a trade in the Royal Rumble. So it is a 14-team, 2-copy, best ball start 11. Ray is receiving Kenneth Walker, who obviously just got a big bomb in his backfield, Zach Charbonnet. He also then receives Chig, and he also gets Jaden Reed, who went to the Green Bay Packers in round 2 out of Michigan State. I traded those pieces away. I am receiving Michael Pittman, David Njoku, and Jacoby Myers, who's now landed in Las Vegas. Brandon, you're in the league. You know it as well as anybody. So it's a 14-team league with 2 copies. So it's essentially 28 teams. It's best ball. We're starting 11. It's a 1.75 tight end premium. Scoring is a little juiced to the running back position. Full PPR. A lot of different bonuses and intricacies. What's your thoughts on the deal as a whole, man?
I actually didn't mind the deal. When I first glanced at it, didn't see too much of a problem. To me, knowing your roster and knowing you have a handful of really good, solid young running backs, this is probably for you. You're probably trying to limit or reduce your exposure on Kenneth Walker. You've been very high on Kenneth Walker all offseason. But you've also preached to sell him when appropriate, and I think this is one of those times where you're kind of cashing that chip in and saying I'm gonna bet on Michael Pittman, the wide receiver 1 for Indianapolis. Jaden Reed and Jacoby Myers kind of feel like a wash in this format. I don't really think either one of they're gonna have a couple spike weeks, but most likely they're not gonna hit either of your lineups. So it really comes down to Kenneth Walker and Chig or David Njoku and Michael Pittman. And, I don't really see a clear side that won the deal, but I think you got something you really needed in a wide receiver in Pittman. He got another running back to add to his stable in Kenneth Walker. I could see, Charbonnet coming into Seattle being a situation where you're concerned maybe about Ken Walker's usage. But like you said earlier, in the format, it is quarter point point per carry. So that can kind of balance some of that out. So I really don't overall have a problem with either side of the deal. I don't think either side smash deal. I think it's actually a pretty fair trade for you and Ray. But it was a good deal given the format.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I will say you talked about you would have liked to have Mike on. I would be so curious to get Mike's thoughts, and I'll have to do that, unfortunately, not on the trade show. Ray and I both viewed this as a very fair deal. It made sense for both sides, and I think that's the way it got done. This was a deal that we actually made relatively quick. Ray often thinks I'm trying to, get one over on him, and he's probably not wrong. I mean, I send some offers sometimes off the head that are a little crazy. He sent me an offer today. I kind of like the basis of it, right? He was clearly trying to acquire Kenneth Walker. I didn't necessarily love the pieces I was getting back, but I thought it was a fair deal. For me, when I looked at my team, Brandon, I just took Bijan Robinson, right? I had the 103, which is essentially the first copy of the number 2 pick. So initially when we had this before the draft, I'm kind of envisioning a scenario where maybe I can get either one of Bijan and A-Rich. And then after A-Rich went to Indy, I'm like, can I get A-Rich there? A-Rich obviously went both at 101 and 102. So now I'm thinking, man, I got Kenny Pickett and Dak, and I took Bijan. So now because I took Bijan, I do have a really deep and good young running back room. Not that I'm really looking to move Kenneth Walker, but if the right deal came along, I was happy to make a move, right? And for me, that was kind of where it's like, okay, maybe now I can move Kenneth Walker, but what am I going to get back? So, all right, Michael Pittman for Kenneth Walker in this format at the 0.25 points per carry, I think really that's still a slight win for Kenneth Walker's side. Not that I wouldn't make it because I need receivers, but that's the way I viewed it. The big thing for me here actually is there's 2 things. The switch, obviously, from running back to receiver I needed to do. I didn't want to have too much risk at this point in time on the running backs, which can get hurt early. Like I could have 4 running backs get hurt, this whole team gets derailed. So I wanted to make a switch and deepen my receiver room. But my tight end room is actually very shallow. And it's not that I don't like Chig, but I really don't actually like Chig as my tight end 1, right? If you tell me Chig's my tight end 2, tight end 3, tight end 4, cool with that. But if he's going to be my main piece, I really wanted to get – you don't have to say that Njoku's way much more valuable than Chig is, but for me, I feel a lot better if he's my tight end 1 in best ball than I do if it's Chig. So that was a big piece there. Ray wanted to swap back with Reed and Myers. I actually said it's fine. I'll take the Myers side. I think production-wise, Myers could still outlast him. But I think Ray was savvy by getting Reed right now, and there's 4 months where Reed has hype that Myers isn't going to get some value bump coming this summer. It's not happening. Like his value is pretty entrenched. Where Reed, you might be able to swindle somebody or talk them into this is a young guy that got draft capital in Green Bay and could have some success early in his career. So I thought it was a fair trade on both sides. I don't know if there's any final thoughts you had on it from there.
Yeah, I mean, I just went and looked at your tight end room, and Tucker Kraft, Alberto, Schoonmaker, Ian Thomas, Adam Troutman. I mean, we're talking about, you're talking your typical best ball dart room. So to add somebody like Njoku to give you a little bit of stability in there, totally understand the move. I think, like I said, I don't think either team got completely destroyed on either end. You got what you needed. He got what he needed.
Yeah, and
carousel continues.
I think it's also one of these deals. I think it's fair and value-wise, right? I think like the value on each side for Dynasty is probably whatever your source is probably going to tell you it's fairly close. And I think this is one of those trades. Sometimes a trade doesn't have to come on the trade show and be like, oh my goodness, this guy got over on this guy, right? Sometimes the best trades are ones that just make sense for the build, right? Ray wanted a little more depth at running back. He had receivers to play with. It was the opposite for me, right? I have some receivers, but I wanted to get deeper there. Ray has a very deep stable of tight ends. Like he had the stack. That was one thing he was a little harder to separate in Njoku from Watson, but he has tight ends. He can afford to have Chig as his third or fourth tight end, where I'm in a position where I don't actually want to have that happen. So sometimes the best deals are finding what teams need to blend with each other and make a deal that makes sense for both sides. Not every single deal has to be a winner and loser on both sides. I am curious, since Brandon and I won't give you one. Everybody in the comments, we want to hear it. Who won the deal, Ray or myself? Which side would you want, or do you think it's a fair deal? Love to hear your thoughts. 12-team lineup, start 10. We have T. Higgins, Justin Ross, and the 305 being acquired for the 104 and the 207. Brandon, what are your thoughts on this deal, man? 104 and 23. So you're looking at, realistically, man, that's your pick of, like, not necessarily your pick, but you're going to get a chance at Gibbs or the third quarterback that's left there. That's pretty much what 104 is going to end up. 207 is not nearly as good as we thought it once was. There's probably going to be some decent guys there. You could get a chance at Laporta maybe. You're going to get, a Tank Bigsby, a Charbonnet. Sometimes people hate on him. You might be able to get Roschon if someone doesn't reach on him. So it's a good pick. But then the big thing is you're getting T. Higgins down below, which is a solidified top 12 receiver for almost everybody. I'm assuming here that Sorsey has the ability to lose a quarterback, but which side do you want on this one?
I kind of want the 104 and the 207. And here's what I'm looking at.
Okay.
I'm taking Justin Ross in the 305 is essentially the same as the 207, like value-wise, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's 305, and like you're tearing off the 207, and you're getting the 305 and Justin Ross. So then it comes down to, do I want T. Higgins or do I want the 104, which would be, like you said earlier, it'll be either Jahmyr Gibbs or C.J. Stroud. Now, I'm assuming that XJ Gallagher probably has some stable of wide receivers without looking at his room. He's got to have some level of, he's probably got like a Chaser Jefferson. Maybe he's got a CeeDee Lamb or an A.J. Brown. He's probably got like a Devonta Smith, probably got like an Amon-Ra. He's probably got some crazy stable of wide receivers that he is willing to go and give up T. Higgins to Sorsey for the 104. But the 104, I think you could either split the asset into maybe the 106 plus and get like JSN and not lose too much production in a lineup. You're not going to lose too much in the wide receiver room there. Or you could just make the pick and take Jahmyr Gibbs or C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, whichever one kind of lands in your lap. I kind of like that liquidity right now in this moment. I've seen some crazy deals going down with early first-round picks. People are really wanting those first 5-6 picks. After that, it's kind of just like a no man's land, and we'll probably see a couple more trades where that happens.
Yep.
I'm foreshadowing here, but those top handful of picks, I mean, straight up, Adam, would you take the 104 T. Higgins? Without any context. Without
any context, I want the 104.
Right.
See, here's the thing about this trade. I'll say this, and I went back to Discord to kind of try to get some more context, right? So Sorsey, I know, is our patron. He's in the $5 tier, and he's saying this is a 12-team lineup, start 10. It's half point, tight end premium. His quarterbacks that he currently has are going to be he already got Anthony Richardson in the draft, right? So he's got A-Rich, he's got Pickett, and he's got Dime. So he's saying my quarterback room's fine, and I want to go ahead and get a receiver, lock it up. And listen, I understand the idea there. See, my problem is, for me, I'd almost rather lean into having a fourth quarterback and then making someone pick the quarterback they want to come get, and I can tax them more for that, right? Now, I understand going to get T. Higgins, but when I just look at it from a value standpoint, currently today, the current 104 in player is C.J. Stroud, and he is actually going a pick ahead of Jahmyr Gibbs, and then that's going one spot ahead of T. Higgins. So when I look at this, I already say the 104 and T. Higgins at least at minimum wash. So Justin Ross in the 305 is another thing I'm not doing additionally for the 207. I think for me, if you wanted to move 104 for T. Higgins and you said you have a really good quarterback room, it's not the way I dynasty. But I could at least say to you, like, I understand what you're doing. I know your process there. I'll say this. I wouldn't have done it, though, in the beginning. And then the 207 for Ross and the 305 and a lineup start 10. Justin Ross is absolutely a zero here. He's not even a roster clogger. He should just be cut as soon as this deal's over. And then, like, the 207 to 305, it's too much for me to even consider if it was the other way around. So, Sorsey, I'm not going to say that you lose this deal huge. I'm not going to say T. Higgins couldn't help your team win a title. I just think sometimes it's the edges, and I think here if you have a fourth quarterback or it's Jahmyr Gibbs, that's a player that could trade for more in the next 4 months than can T. Higgins. So it's a lot of it's about how much you move and trade, but for me, I want the other side of this deal, 104 and 207.
Yeah, I don't think you – I think you may be sold for maybe like 98, 97% on the dollar. Like, I don't think – like, he gave him just a very, very slight haircut, and those are the kind of margins that when you're playing in leagues like this, you got to be – like, you want the other side. You want the 103 side, not the 97 side. right? Like you want to be able to get that extra little sliver of value, whether it's, a third round pick or whether it's, if you really wanted a wide receiver, could you have went maybe down a half a step and got like Devonta Smith in a future second, right? You still get the same level of production, but you don't have to give up just a straight up 104. Like just sometimes I think we get caught like, I've got the 104, I need to trade it now, right?
Yeah,
Get that mentality. We've hit the draft like, oh no, what am I going to do? The panic button starts to hit and it's like, panic. Oh, this is a good deal. Let me hit it. It seems pretty fair. Look, all the KTC values line up, all the ADP lines up, but it's like sometimes just take a half second back, take a deep breath and just look at it and be like, is there any other move I can make?
And to that point, Brandon, a really good point. And I think here's the thing, right? Understanding the markets in your league. Maybe your league, it's not a quarterback frenzy league, but I can tell you right now, lineup start 10, it forces it to be. I don't care what your league mates say. Two quarterbacks, right? Superflex, start 10, 12 team. Like this league is driven by quarterbacks. So as much as I like T. Higgins, and I do, Mike and I will tell you till we're blue in the face, T. Higgins is probably undervalued. When it gets to the quarterback market, I don't care which one it is here, right? If it ends up being Bijan, that's ridiculous, but it's not going to be. So you're going to get one of the quarterbacks, whether it's Stroud or Bryce or A-Rich. You already have A-Rich, so we know it's probably CJ or Bryce. Doesn't matter. Whatever is thought about now throughout the offseason, there's chance and value bumps, but somebody is going to need a quarterback so much differently than they're going to need a receiver in a league like this. I just want to have the extra shot at the quarterback room. And I saw, I'm in a draft right now, lineup start 10, and I'm seeing the draft, and it's all about quarterbacks. Gibb goes to the 106. I want to have the quarterback here over T. Higgins. So not to exhaust it too much, but Sourcey, I would say next time to think about, either definitely don't do the 207 and 305 part. If you just wanted to switch it now and you're not someone that high volume trades, I could get that, but there's no need to add an extra piece on top of the 104 to T. Higgins. So anyway there. All right, so Brandon, let's get into the next deal. So we are looking at, let's see. All right, we got a 7 goat rings trade. I mean, it's not the trade show if it's not a 7 goat rings trade. 7 goat rings is sending away the 109, which was Big Black Scoobies, which we probably saw him acquire on this show at some point. He's sending away that 109 and John Mechie. Honestly, we probably saw him acquire both of these on the show. Now he's getting, for those two pieces, Kadarius Toney, Mac Jones, and the 204. 12-team, 2-quarterback, full PPR, start 11. It's a lineup league. So, Brandon, what are your thoughts here? 2-quarterback obviously changes it here some for the value of like Mac Jones. What are your thoughts here?
7 goat rings. Man, he always seems to get over on people. And this one isn't even like a full-on just straight destroying. It's like a sneaky one, right?
Yes.
This is like a sneaky steal, right? Because start 2 QBs, quarterbacks are instantly like. Basically, when I play in like start 2 QB leagues, I always want 4. I want 4.
Correct.
Right? Yep. Like you want 4. You don't want 3 because you can get screwed with bye weeks and injuries. Like you need 4 good ones. So to be able to have to spend the 109, which let's just probably project out, Adam, and I would say Will Levis won't be there.
In 2 quarterback, he probably won't. But he probably won't.
Probably won't. So you're looking at what, like Quentin Johnston? Maybe
It's probably going to end up being. It's probably going to end up being like Zay Flowers or your top pick of running back is what I would guess.
Yeah. So you're not getting a quarter. So you're giving up a non-quarterback pick. You're getting a quarterback back, regardless of how you feel about Mac Jones. He's still a starting quarterback. And so then, like you're giving that up, and you're getting Kadarius Toney, and you're getting the 204. And you're giving up the 109 and John Mechie, who, listen, John Mechie could be a great comeback story this year, coming back from his illness. But man, would it surprise us if he gives you 80% of what Kadarius Toney gives you?
Not at all.
Would it be like, right? So now you basically got, not only did you get a quarterback for a non-QB pick, but you got the better wide receiver and you got a free 204.
Right. So I think what 7 Goat Rings did here, and I've been getting a lot of questions about this, what is Mac Jones worth in picks? People are so panicked about Mac Jones, man. People are very, very panicked about Mac Jones. I think this was well done by 7 Goat Rings, right? Because when he made the trade, it was, I think, before the NFL draft, but it was people, even still, if it was after, they haven't quite, a lot of people moved their head and wrapped around that 109 is not what it was before the draft pick happens, right? Like the NFL draft did not do justice for the 109. So you're trying to get Mac Jones from a guy that's probably been trying to sell, and you send him 109 because he's been waiting for a first-round pick for Mac Jones because he's begging to sell. And you were able to play out Kadarius Toney in the 204 for Mechie. I'll say this is definitely a win by 7 Goat Rings. We've seen him constantly win on the show. But the process and how it was done and the timing of it, I like, because it's not something that's these crazy 7 Goat Rings just wins on some deal that who would ever do this? Like, I can see a very real scenario of someone that wanted to move Mac, couldn't, and gets a first that 7 Goat Rings wasn't going to offer them until he realized 109 is now not really a pick that we really want, especially knowing, like you said, that Levis probably goes at the 108 in a league like this. So I like it quite a bit, even if you do like Levis, right? Like, Mac Jones is still a first-round pick. New England hasn't addressed quarterback again, no matter what you say about Bailey Zappi. Like, I still would rather have Mac Jones than Will Levis in a 2-quarterback league. So I really like what he did here. I think it's a win. I don't think it's, like, crazy egregious, but I'm with you. I think it's a win for his side. So 7 Goat Rings. Well done, man. All right, Brandon. So we got B. Hall making the trade here. A big move to go get Justin Herbert. So it's 12-team Superflex best ball. We're only starting 10, so it is best ball, but it's a shallow starting lineup. He's acquiring Justin Herbert. He is sending away Trey Lance, the 103, which right now you're probably looking at your pick of Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud there. The 112, which we've already talked about, it's kind of getting more like a second-round pick in value. The 306 and the 309. I mean, Brandon, I'll ask your thoughts, but I'm just going to tell you, one, if there's a position I'll pay up for, it's quarterback, even in best ball. And two, this isn't even paying up, man. Like 103 for Herbert's not close. Not close at all. You had Trey Lance, yeah, nice dart throw, closer, still want Herbert. 112, 306, 309 do not move the needle at all, honestly, for me, even in best ball. You're getting, I guess, 3 legit chances and some really long shots at 306 and 309, but when it comes to Justin Herbert, man, dogs 2-1-2-1. I don't know if you watch this or if you'll see it later, but you're not going to like what we have to say.
I don't even think Mike would like this deal.
No.
Heck no. And Mike is, the tear down king, right?
He's a tear down king, and he loves him some Trey Lance, right?
And he loves him some Trey Lance, but even this is not enough. Like 103, like you said, let's just put it what it is. It's Bryce Young. Right, 99 out of 100 leagues that we probably draft 103. It's probably Bryce Young. The only difference is someone maybe wants C.J. Stroud or Jahmyr Gibbs, but it's very few. 112, you're looking at like Dalton Kincaid. It's not anything special. 306, 309. Pick your darts. I mean, Trey Lance, we don't even know if he's going to get a starting job. Reports are now coming out of San Francisco that Sam Darnold's been the best thrower of the football in San Francisco since Kyle Shanahan's been there. So that starts. There's a few. There's enough seed of doubt to think that Trey Lance has probably got. And there was even news today about Brock Purdy being on schedule and that they're bracing for 4 weeks, right? So you're looking at maybe 4 starts of Trey Lance, and realistically, let's just say all things are rosy unicorns. Trey Lance probably has 3 good starts out of those 4.
Yeah.
Right? 3 good starts. We'll just be very positive, upbeat. He's going to have a good training camp. He's going to have a good preseason. He's going to come out. He's probably going to have 1 dud and 3 really good games.
Yep.
It's still not even close to Justin Herbert. Not even this needs what would you say, Adam? The 105? And that might warm up the conversation. I could maybe.
If you gave me 103 and 104, if you told me, right, because I think 103 and 104 guarantees me 2 quarterbacks. So if you told me, all right, I'm going to get C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young and the 112, I could still see a scenario where you say, no, that's too light. But I can at least in that scenario make a case for why someone else would do it. See, my problem here is 103 is obviously way light. I don't care what you say it is. Bryce, C.J., whoever you think there. It's not going to be Bijan. I'm trying to create a scenario. Maybe somebody maybe this league isn't really high on A-Rich. Let's even say it was that for the case of the argument. Let's say it's Anthony Richardson at 103, just to try to make the argument close. Like, okay, upside guy, I like him, but Lance, again, is uncertain. I like it as a wild card, but the other three pieces in this deal aren't close enough to make me really think about it, man. 112 in this draft. I want everybody to understand this. Mike and I talked about liquidity, right? Till we're blue in the face. People in the comments were saying, now, if you get stuck with the pick, you're not going to like it for Pickens, all these people. Yeah, you're right. If you didn't move that pick, 112 for Pickens is not something you want to do now. But here we are today, and the 112 is not that valuable. Like, it's more like a second-round pick. Those pieces down there, 309, 306, and 112, they don't move the needle for me in a deal like this. But if you told me it was 103, 104, and Trey Lance, or 103, 104, and the 112 in these thirds, I could see it a little more there. But, man, you got to remember, we're starting 10. Like, these elite quarterbacks are going to run this league. So I want Herbert, man. B-Hall did a great job, I personally think.
Yeah, well done. Well done.
All right, so enough of that one. We don't really need to keep going on and on here. All right, so 12-team Superflex, best ball, 2 tight end really does make this a big deal. Start 12. Dynasty Alex Plank Crew is getting a 24 first from Shift 17. Shift 17, it's 2 tight ends, sees at the 112 that he gets Kincaid. Man, a few things about this deal strike me very interesting. One, like Kincaid, to me, I've seen him go earlier than 112 in a 1 tight end league. That's just tight end premium.
Yeah.
2 tight end leagues, man, getting Kincaid at the 112 is I think, quite a bit of a steal. Now, the problem becomes this 24 first. I like Kincaid. 2 tight end, I really like him. But, man, I have a feeling Dynasty Alex is like, you know what? If you think Kincaid's going to save your team this year, I want to bet on your 24 first, because the only way I would ever consider doing this is if I know I have a best ball team that's just ridiculous, right? And I'm like, okay, you can have my 24 first. I'm pretty confident it's 109 or later. I want to have Kincaid right now with the first-round draft capital. Honestly, even there, I think I can probably buy something better with my 24 first. I understand it from both sides. I think for me, I want to be the person that's betting on a asset that has crazy upside if it ends up being a team that's not very good in Dynasty Alex side. What do you think here, Brandon?
You know, I've never going into the draft process, I wasn't necessarily a huge Dalton Kincaid guy. Then he got drafted by Buffalo, and I still wasn't really completely sold. You know, I had a conversation with somebody in the Destination Devy Discord, patreon.com/allgas. And we were talking about Kincaid, and one of the things that I kept drawing myself to is what's a realistic outcome for him in year 1, right? Like maybe 500 yards, maybe 600. Like based on
Knox is still there, right?
Knox is still there. Like, what are we getting? Like 30, 35 catches at maybe like 12 to 15 yards a catch, right? So we're looking at like maybe 450 yards with a couple touchdowns. Like, it's good.
If he had 600 yards and 3-4 touchdowns, I think he'd be doing pretty damn good, even with his capital.
He'd be a top 8 dynasty tight end, right? We'd be talking about him as he'd be right outside of that like Dallas Goedert range, right? Like he'd be the next.
Yes.
He'd be at the top of the next tier, right? Like right there with like Noah Fant, that group.
Yeah,
like he'd be in that.
He'd probably be ahead of Noah Fant just because people have lost favor in Fant. But yeah, he'd be more like, he'd be hovering around the back end of tight end 1 discussion for sure. Like there's a lot of guys in that range. But and part of the problem in tight end with the dynasty value is that like that group always is, it's like a constant flowing change because we're always so anxious for these young guys to take off. But it's so often that we put the young guys up there and then they don't end up coming to fruition because we saw flashes in their rookie year. But to do it sustained at the tight end position is much different. I think that's kind of the point you're getting at for what's he going to be in his rookie season and what's he going to project long term.
Like, I would rather have that 24 first, like you just said. And even if you start to see like 4 or 5 weeks in, like, all right, Shift 17, his team is just good. And he got Dalton Kincaid and he's good. All right, so now it's going to be like a 108, 109. You're not going to be in the Brock Bowers sweepstakes in 2024.
Right.
Probably going to miss out on the top end. Like, it's just another 24 first. You could take that 24 first to somebody who's trying to retool and say, hey, I noticed you got a Juwan Johnson over there on your roster that's going to be chewing up roster space over there. Yep. You want to give me that? You want to? I'll give you this late first. Can you give me like Juwan Johnson in a second? So now you've got a tight end. Now you got another tight end and your start 2 tight end, and you still kept your liquidity, albeit it's a second, but it's still something you can use to trade again. Right?
100%, bro. 100%.
I think that's really what we're looking at here, right? Is by making the pick and already making the pick at Kincaid, it is now Kincaid. It's like a car, right? Draft picks are like cars, right? At the car dealership. You've got them all, and once you take them off the lot and you make the pick, that pick instantly starts losing value. The second you make the name to it,
yes,
it loses its value.
It is that, especially these type assets. Now, can Kincaid eventually become worth more than the 112 in a best ball 2 tight end league? Of course. But immediately, the picks that are not the top 5 in this class, right? Now, you can make the argument that at 101, if no one would trade up for that pick, in the draft, maybe Bijan, in 5-6 months is actually more valuable than he was on the lot, or a Rich or one of these guys. But especially when it's not those elite liquid players that are typically quarterbacks. Like, the problem with this is, right, when we start thinking about it, 2 tight end makes the demand for all the top 30 tight ends much different. So acknowledge that, right? But I think what's being lost here for the person that's trading away their 24 first is, okay, worst case scenario next year, this is a 112 for Dynasty Alex. So he's kicked the can down the road. But it's still liquid all this whole season. If you have any lapse, if you have a slow start, that pick can trade for so many things, right, during the season. To Brandon's point, like, Kincaid is Kincaid. It's the car. It's depreciated pretty much right away. The 24 first can be viewed as anything. It's like KG. Anything is possible. Like, like that 24 first can be anything that you can trade to somebody. If someone thinks, let's say it's 5 weeks in, and this team is 2-3. Let's say the team still is going to be fine, make the playoffs, be a good team. But you might be able to sell someone that pick could become a Marvin Harrison Jr. Like, what is that worth in a trade? Way more than Dalton Kincaid. So, to me, I want the flexibility, not having to have Kincaid right away and getting the 24 first. I get it, though. If you're shift 17 and your team ends up winning the title, or, you can move Kincaid for something more, maybe your league better. But for me, in a vacuum, I just easily want the other side of this deal. So, all right, yep. Let's get into another one here, Brandon. So, we are looking at here, Zach, I'm not good. Zach, I don't – Brandon, I'm curious your thoughts here. I need to know from a perspective that isn't myself, because I'm a known Hollywood hater relative to the community. Like, I actually don't think I hate on Hollywood. I just think the community's always too high on them. That's the way I view it. But, like, I know McLaurin is always depressed in value, it feels, in the Dynasty community. But, like, these are 24 seconds. Like, first and foremost, let me just tell you, Zach says that he believes that he's getting a pick upgrade. But let's say that even they're blank checks. They could become whatever. Like, there's not a second swap for me that makes this deal worth it in lineup personally. Like, I don't have Hollywood in the McLaurin tier.
Yeah.
So I don't see how this works, honestly, for me personally.
Yeah, this is kind of just almost feels like money laundering. Right? Can I say that on YouTube? This
of
kind
course.
Of feels like money laundering.
It does.
It feels like money laundering. It just feels like money laundering. Like, hey, you take this wide receiver that everybody thinks is higher but really isn't, and I'll take this one. Okay, hey, let's swap some 24 seconds. Might get a better. We'll play the lottery down the road. We'll see what happens. But it's just, I mean, you said it. Hollywood seems to be like almost like the anti-Tyler Lockett, right? Tyler Lockett's criminally underrated and overproduces outside the ADP, and Hollywood is literally the opposite, right? Everybody wants him to be this top 20, 25 asset, and he does it for like 3 games and then finds some random leg injury and he goes back down into the wide receiver 40 pool.
Yes, right. He's had his spike moments, but he's never been a full season like, oh my goodness. I know the 1 year in Baltimore, he was pretty good. Him and Andrews were over 1,000 yards and all that, but like, the totality of his career with what he's given you in production plus his profile to me, it just doesn't make sense personally for me.
And this is lineup.
Why he's so highly valued. Well, that's exactly my point, Brandon. This is a half PPR league. One, right? He didn't give me the context of the starters. It personally doesn't matter if it's 9, 12, 15 starters because you're getting a receiver 1-for-1, right?
Right.
Here's the thing. Now, it's half PPR. If you were to try to convince me or anybody here, like Hollywood Brown is 10 spots better than Terry McLaurin, and you're like, I could care less about the second swaps, fine. But see, I think what's crazy about this, and this is, I think, one of the things that Mike and I talk about with tier downs, right? Like, for whatever reason, Stinzy probably believes that he's craftily tiering up. Like, the only way this could make sense to me is he thinks that Hollywood Brown is worth more than Terry McLaurin, and he's willing to forgo whatever these seconds become to do that. This is like kind of knowing your league and your league mates. If you find an edge where this person's very high, Stinzy, you're very high on Hollywood Brown, and you're not very high on Terry McLaurin, if I can swap seconds, even if I think they're going to be a little bit better for you than me, I'm willing to do that. But Zach thinks he's getting Terry McLaurin and the better 24 second because Stinzy values Hollywood so high. This is where you can like always net value, right? If you have gaps and discrepancies in your rankings and your views versus theirs, and you can get a plus, that's how you do it. I don't think a 24-second swap's all that great, but if that ends up being a playoff 24-second and he ends up missing the playoffs, like, I'm okay betting against his team. So I would take McLaurin straight up over Hollywood Brown. It doesn't feel like process-wise the craziest when you look at it, but I think when you start digging into what's going on, I want the McLaurin side. Brandon, is there a scenario where you would take Hollywood side here? Is there any scenario for you?
Maybe if Kyler comes back faster, maybe if we started to hear more positive reports.
Speaking of that, Brandon, DeAndre Hopkins, Constantly trade rumors, all this, just put out that video. I think it was today, or yesterday, whatever it was. Who said I want to leave? Who said I'm leaving? Look, if Nuke's back this year, and let's say Murray's not playing right away, why is Hollywood all that valuable?
I mean, Hollywood needs Kyler to be on the field because if Arizona's running out Colt McCoy and or Clayton Tune, I'll tell you this right now, they're not. Like, DeAndre Hopkins may want to stay, but homie's going to be gone by week 6.
Yeah, and I guess
he's not going to like.
I guess that's a good point too you're making.
But at the same time, if I remember correctly, I don't have this off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure Hollywood's in a contract year himself.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Maybe that's the value spike that you're hoping for, is that maybe he gets moved in season to a contender. Maybe the Kansas City Chiefs get frisky, and after looking at all of their barrel of best ball lineup wide receivers and says, hey, we want to add a Hollywood. Maybe that's the missing link. Like, maybe that's the value spike that you can get from it. But I mean, ultimately, this is just literally a wash, in my opinion. You're just washing second round picks and wide receiver 3 flex type wide receivers.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the one thing I will admit here is that, like, I'm still not doing this, right? But
no,
McLaurin. Part of the thing, if you're in a 12-team Superflex half PPR lineup league, and let's say it's more like start 9, start 10, like, I'm still starting McLaurin comfortably in those leagues. But in these leagues, I guess you could make the case for you want to be attached to quarterbacks and offenses that score a lot, right? So as good as McLaurin is, he's kind of boom or bust, and then the offense isn't the greatest, so his booms may not be all that great as well. And he's tied there with a big contract, so you're betting on maybe that Kyler offers more upside for a team, and that if he's moved, you could get more in Hollywood. Like, I guess that's a fair argument, but for me, a difference in a second just doesn't make it up. So I'm taking the other side on Zach here. I like what he did process-wise, but we'll see if we'll see what happens with Hollywood. I'm just not doing that. Okay, this is one, Brandon, we had to talk about. And the reason I want to talk about this one, like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that this is probably what you're always going to see in leagues. But the reason I do want to talk about it, I've talked quite a bit at length and on the draft stream, Brandon, about how Bijan Robinson, right? Great player. I've envisioned when I had these 23 picks for forever having Bijan Robinson on my team. I like him. I think he's a great running back talent. Now, he goes at the 203 in a startup here. Okay, so Big STD. Love that name. He takes Bijan at the 203 in a startup. Mr. Shy Guy, our patron, Savage Tier member, Indy's Finest, he sends his 24 and his 25 first for Bijan, right? So if you're a contender and in a startup here, right, now I like to have my flexibility 24 and 25. But if you're going to give away your flexibility and you can say, I have a team that can contend, lineup start 10 for Bijan, right? These could end up being, you're probably viewing them as mid to late. But if they end up being too late first for Bijan, wow. One, that's a great deal, I think, for Indy. But two, I think what's crazy is it kind of shows like what sometimes people might think of Bijan as far as tradability in futures. And someone basically saying, I'll bet against your team for 2 years, and here's your Bijan. Which, if you view him that way, man, I would never want to take that person at the 101. So I'm kind of curious overall, Brandon, your thoughts here. What do you think of this trade? What do you think of Bijan's value and such?
I need to know Big STD. This is his first ever startup draft. I'm not trying to be too insensitive, but this is terrible. This is awful. There's one thing our boss at DD, Ray Garvin, always says in a startup. If you're going to trade startup picks, you better get startup picks back.
Sure.
Giving up a startup pick
this early, especially, right? 203, right?
And not getting one back, even if it's an 8th, 9th round, 10th round guy, doesn't matter.
Yep.
Giving up 2 future first round picks for a startup pick, just you can never recoup the value of getting a startup pick back. Once you've given them up, you can't get them back. Right? You can go buy in any dynasty league. You can go buy future picks, future rookie picks. You could do it at any time with any player. How many you get, that's completely up to the buyer and the seller. But when it's startup time, you have those finite amount of startup picks. They will never come any cheaper than in the draft themselves.
Yeah.
And just to not get one back, that's huge. And then on top of that, to get somebody's 25 first and a 24 first for a guy like Bijan Robinson, you panic traded. That's what this is. This is a panic deal. This is, oh no, I got Bijan and I don't know what to do. And oh look, somebody's dangling 2 firsts in front of me. Let me go take it because this might be the best offer I ever get.
Yeah.
Instead of negotiating and saying, you know what, Mr. Shy Guy, I don't want your 25 first. I want your 6th round startup pick. I want your 5th round startup pick.
That's a great point. So a couple things here, right? I don't know how it went down for Big SCD. Maybe he did get a Big SCD during the startup, and it just went terribly wrong, right? But the point is, okay, when you're making trades in a startup, right? Everybody's going to have their own first, and until these type trades start happening, nobody's going to have a multitude of first yet, right? So let's say you did screw up the draft and you want to trade out of Bijan, no one, right, at this point can offer you, hey, here's 2 24s and a 24 second. Because until they start trading the futures away, everybody has their own, right? So at this point, maybe this is the best deal on the table for him. And I don't know if it's a true panic or what happens, but he's saying, all right, 2 firsts, it's the best offer I'm getting for Bijan. Let me trade out. This draft hasn't gone the way I want to, and I need to rebuild already. Let me just explain for me the problem here on a lot of levels. One, okay, even if you screwed up, you don't have to trade Bijan today. You don't have to do that. Two, even if you say that the only way, Brandon, the only way I would ever make this other side of the trade is if I looked at Mr. Shy Guy's team, and let's say we made this trade and it's round 6, round 7, round 8, round 9, something like that, and I'm like, he doesn't have good quarterbacks. His team is terrible. I feel, even with Bijan, I feel very good that these are going to be top 4 picks, and I want to bet against his team and have, kind of have the reins over him, control his future. so very rare in a startup that early that I ever see a team constructed that badly. So for me, like a 25 first, right? Understand now when you look at it, because 23 is already drafted, you're going to say 25 is not that. 25 is forever away. It is forever away, man. If this is two 24s and you're telling me there's a chance they're both top 6, maybe. But I'd still probably want a second there. Like, this feels like really. This feels so bad. This feels terrible. Like this is stupid stuff, man.
And even the pushback on your point earlier, like when you're like, oh well, maybe we got to round 6 or round 7 or round 8. Like you have 7 or 8 picks of his that you can look at.
Right.
Like even say, all right, you know what? I'll take Ken Walker in your 24 first. I'll take, X rookie and your 24 first. Like, just sometimes people just make deals.
Michael Pittman. You could Treylon Burks. You can get so many players that are in the 5 to 8 range, as opposed to a 25 first here too.
I tell people a lot when they ask me, about deals. One of the things I always tell myself too is that sometimes you gotta just walk away from your app, because sometimes you'll make one trade.
Great point.
Like I'm sure Biggie STD was probably scooping up picks left and right after this one. Like I guarantee you in that startup, and sometimes you make one too many trades and you completely shit the bed. And this just happens to be the trade that literally shits the bed. Like that's just what this is.
That was what I was going to say. That's one of those, like, okay, when you don't get startup picks back, right? The only way that can ever work for you, typically in my view, is if, one, you just happen to bet against the right team. Or two, it's if you do it on, like, okay, you traded out of the second round, you got multiple first. You traded out of the third round, you got multiple first, right? And you're getting just so many different shots in the first round that eventually your leverage in the first round now is worth it. But it's not in a single trade. It's not, if that makes sense, right? And to me, if you're only taking a single first in this 24 and 25 for Bijan, like I have a hard time believing you're extracting the right value out in the third and the fourth and the fifth to even get that haul of picks. I'm actually trying really hard, Brandon. I can't see a scenario where I
can't. And that's the thing. It's like I'm trying to be like, oh man, I don't want to flame this deal that hard. But it's really hard when you're
this is terrible.
When you're doing only 2 future. And here's the thing: is some people know about 24 first, so they understand like the value behind them now that 24 mocks are coming out. But like 2025, there is a ton of unknown about that 2025 class.
These guys had their freshman year. We don't know anything yet.
Like we just don't. There's not enough data points around it to just be like, yep, I'm gonna willingly throw away Bijan Robinson.
And to give you an idea, right, of what we thought about 23 this time, right? So what we're thinking about 25, what we thought about 23 was Tank Bigsby is going to be a top 4 pick in the class, right? We thought DJU had a chance for 101. Like so much is going to change about the 25 first class. So I don't want to continue to exhaust this one. Indy's finest. Well done. This is stupid, man. And the other thing too is even if it wasn't Bijan, you just tell me the 203. That's a range where I can get so many players that are worth my liquidity. 24 and 25. I'm in. All right. So we got Evan Ringler is acquiring Rashad White, Jacoby Myers, and a 24 first. He is sending away Travis Etienne, who just, speaking of Tank Bigsby, got a running mate in Tank Bigsby in the third round, went to Jacksonville. So, Brandon, curious your thoughts here. So we got Jacoby Myers, Rashad White, and a 24 first from Soup Dog, sending away Travis Etienne. What are your thoughts here, man? It's a 10-team Superflex Start 11 lineup league.
I actually don't. I like the tear down off of Travis Etienne. I've been on the show a couple times, and I'm pretty sure I've mentioned it in the Savage semester that Travis Etienne to me was already at the beginning of the offseason was like RB5, RB6. And I said, it's probably time to get out on him.
Yep.
And not because of his production, not because of the offense, which has gotten better. It's just simply we've hit the peak of where he's at value-wise. He can't go higher. Right. He really wasn't going to go much higher. So it's like if he's already hit that point, it's kind of like what you had chatted about with Ken Walker, right? He had gotten to the point where he was hitting the ceiling of where he could be value-wise. So it's time to get out. before it gets to be too late, right?
Yeah,
Maximize,
100%.
like squeeze it. And so now you're getting a starting running back in Tampa Bay on a bad team. They're going to be behind a ton. They're going to be throwing it a lot. Rashad White was clearly a very good pass catching back last year.
Yeah, pass catching prowess,
So,
100%.
like, that's one thing that Todd Bowles' offense had was a lot of pass catching out of the backfield. So Rashad White's very valuable. Probably will give you about 80% of what Travis Etienne, right? Probably about 80, 75, 80, which is still really good. You get a free Jacoby Myers, and you get the 2024 first. That's not related to either one of these teams. So we have no idea where that pick could be. It could easily be a top pick, could be a late pick. Who really cares? It's liquidity, right? To go buy something else that you're going to need because this is start 11, so you have a slightly deeper lineup roster. And it's 10 team, so that's like what? That's like 12 teams start 9.
Yeah, I mean
roughly
8 or 9. Yeah, somewhere between 12 teams start 8 or 9. Yep. And here's the big thing, right? So to the point that you're making, a lot of good points, right? I think Rashad White, with them not really addressing the running back position and Lenny going away, I feel like he's a little overvalued in Dynasty. But to your point earlier, like Travis Etienne was very overvalued in Dynasty. The worst thing, like if you did hold on Travis Etienne and Kenneth Walker, the worst thing that could have happened for both of them. Day 2 running backs going to help them run the backfield. Like, will they still be okay in fantasy football? Like, sure, absolutely. Like, can Etienne still be okay? Sure. But him and Ken Walker are not going to have this 3-down opportunity that they probably once did where it's 70, 80% some games. And they both can catch a bunch of passes and get all these carries. Rashad White in a 10-team league, right? So in a 10-team, when you think about taking 2 out, you're starting 11. You want to have really, really good players. So it does move the needle more towards the ETN types. But I think the big thing here is this. Like, the draft zone is probably thinking I could care less about Jacoby Myers in a league like this. 10-team, we're only starting 11. Fine. I can even get behind that. Like, Jacoby Myers is probably borderline roster clogger, but like maybe in pinches you want to play him. Maybe you can trade him if someone has injuries. But, man, the big thing for me here is that, like, you could almost remove Myers. The process play in a 10-team league of Soup Dogs first and White for ETN, I want that side already. Because even in 10-team, if you say that the quarterbacks aren't the craziest valuable here, like, there's a bunch of receivers and running backs in this class, Brock Bowers, right? Like, I want my shots at those guys, and I'm guaranteed a top 10 pick at worst-case scenario here. And if this team, Soup Dog, is not that good, and that's a Travion Henderson, Raheem Sanders, Marvin Harrison Jr., Brock Bowers type player, holy mackerel, man. That's crazy. That's crazy.
This is the kind of trade that you're going to look back on, and potentially it's either going to be a home run for the draft zone, or it's going to be the one that he or she looks back on, and is like, yeah, I probably should have held back a little bit, maybe I should have got a little bit more.
That's a great point, Brandon. That's a great point, and a great way to get out of here, because I think there is in a 10-team league scenario where if this 24 first, let's say, is 110, like if Soup Dog's team's loaded or ends up winning, like there's a scenario where the draft zone ends up winning in a 10-team league because his production still with Travis Etienne outweighs the group here, right? But what I will say is this. You could look back and think that, but it's still not the right process play, right? The process play is to take Rashad White, who's still a very good running back in his own right, maybe not like, guaranteed starter worthy in a 10-team league, but in start 11 could absolutely be starter worthy, flex worthy. A 24 first, which is liquidity. Jacoby Myers almost irrelevant, but maybe you can package him up to get something better. I think
get a second.
Yeah, I think here the package actually still is warranted, even in a league that's only starting 11 in a 10-team. So, I'm just not. If I was gonna tier Rashad White in my 24 first up, I want a running back better than Travis Etienne. I'm not doing this for Travis Etienne. So that's the other point.
Yeah, I want at least Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah, you give me You give me Gibbs. You give me. I mean, it's not going to be long. Brandon,
not gonna be. It's probably top 5. It's all the top 5, right? JT.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, you give me Bijan. You give me Bijan. It's a smash. You give me Brees Hall. I'm in. You give me JT. I'm definitely in. After that, you start getting dicier. Like, because now you're going to say Christian McCaffrey, right? Like old.
I was going to go Barkley.
Barkley, I'll still say is a guy that I could risk it for if you're telling me Soup Dog's pick looks late. 10-team
What about
league.
Josh Jacobs?
Nope. I'll stop there.
Okay.
That's my list. Barkley, Gibbs, Taylor, Brees, Bijan with ease. I think CMC, it feels rich, but if you're like telling me you can go win a title, forgo it for 1 year, fine. Anything past that, I'm out, man. I'm out on ETN. I'm out on Walker. I'm out on Jacobs. You can keep going down. I'm
Eckler.
out. I'm good. Eckler, I'm out. I'm good.
Okay.
For me personally, do you disagree or think anything different?
I could be talked into CMC. I could be talked into.
So, if my team is ready to go, I'm with you. If my team is ready to go for sure, and you want to win a title, and you think this matters, I could be talked into CMC. But he's the only other one, right?
Right, because it's 10 team. If it's 12 teams, start 11, then probably not. I think the list even shrinks.
Yep, I'm 100% with you. CMC depends on if I'm like super ready to go. Outside of that, everyone south like ETN starting, I'm good. I'll take the package. All right, so we are looking at now 12-team Superflex start 10. Speaking of CMC, Listen Button 1, I believe this is his first deal, or his or her first deal in our Discord, receiving the 102 for Christian McCaffrey and 202. He or she said that, new to the Dynasty space, but still think it's a smash. 102, man, 12-team league. McCaffrey or the 202. We're only starting 10, Brandon. What do you think?
This is hard, man. Because essentially what you're saying is let's put names to those picks. Mm-hmm. Let's just do it, right? Bijan?
It's either Bijan or A-Rich for me. I'm not going to do anything else.
I'm not going to do anything else, right? So either one, which we probably value pretty high,
let's say it's Bijan for a second. Let's just say with Bijan for 102. Bijan and McCaffrey or 202, which is going to net you it doesn't say tight end premium, so let's just say it's Zach Charbonnet, Tank Bigsby, Tajay Spears type player. And McCaffrey. Go ahead.
I was going to say Marvin Mims, Jalen Hyatt, that group. Maybe Mingo.
I mean, whatever. Lineup start 10, sure. Like one of those receivers or running back, like maybe Kendre. I don't think that even happens, but I'll take Bijan.
If it's Bijan, I kind of want McCaffrey.
Really?
I want the McCaffrey. I want the McCaffrey side because if you're trading McCaffrey, if you're trading for McCaffrey, like from Westron's perspective, like I'm looking at it from the other side, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
Like I'm trading Bijan for what'll be at least 95, if not 100% of Bijan's value for the year, and I'm getting a 202. Right? We've talked about moving down off the top 2 picks, but it feels like ad nauseum all off season.
Yep.
Right? And there's nothing wrong with Bijan. It's just what I'm going to get production wise in a start 10. Like CMC's still at that level, right? We just talked about it a moment ago. Like he's still at that threshold level where if I'm ready to go, like give me that and give me that 202 that I can use later on down the season. Now, if it's A-Rich and I need a quarterback, or maybe I'm kind of like light on quarterback, like I got, Jared Goff and Kirk Cousins, then I think I would take the 102 side because I'll take the home run swing. Right? Because there's scenarios where I can take both sides in this. Right? I don't think it's a slam dunk. It could be a slam dunk for Listen Button 1's team, depending on what he or she needs, right?
Right. Now,
you're getting, like you could be cashing out the CMC chip, right? You're going to bank on he's not going to stay healthy in San Francisco. Kyle Shanahan is just bludgeons offensive weapons. They always get hurt just because of the way, the physical nature and the way they play football out there. So you're basically getting you're banking against CMC staying healthy, which that's a risky proposition, but I just think in a vacuum right now, looking at it without any context, I'll take CMC in the 202. And I know that's probably an unpopular opinion, but that's just where I can't.
So here's what I'll say. Here's what I will say. If this is best ball, I can get more on board with what you're saying. If this is a start 12-13 league, probably can get more on board with what you're saying. I think for me, the big issue is a start 10 lineup league, right? Because I actually don't necessarily disagree. Like McCaffrey in production, there's a scenario where he even beats Bijan this year, right? So then you're getting the 2-on-2 on top of it, right? So whatever your pick there is, it's almost like it's an extra gravy on top. Mm-hmm. Here's when it's start 10 for me. Like my problem is this. One, when I make this trade, the moment I make this trade, McCaffrey's on my team till the season starts. That's the way I view it until at least start of August, when the player value starts shifting more towards guys that are going to win now, right? Okay, and let's say you know that, you acknowledge that going in. I don't even care if it's A-Rich or it's Bijan. I know that I have 3 to 4 months of the hype that builds around them to move for more. And for me, the 202 here in a start 10 league, like I definitely want that player. Like I will be drafting Kendre, Charbonnet, anybody you can mention there. I'll draft them. I'll happily keep them on my roster, even in start 10. But there's a very real scenario, Brandon, for me, where it's even if we get to the season, Bijan or A-Rich, McCaffrey 1-for-1 versus Bijan. With McCaffrey's injury history and his chance of like cratering in value, I think I'd rather be more liquid with Bijan than have the 202 on my team at running back. And then at quarterback, like Christian McCaffrey and 202 are never going to get me in the discussion for quarterbacks. Just not going to happen, where A-Rich could. So I will say this. I understand exactly what you're getting to, and I think there are leagues that I would consider McCaffrey in the 202 best ball start 12, start 13, and my roster's deep, and I can afford to just take shots at running backs and have McCaffrey's production weigh me out. But value-wise, with 3 to 4 months of just this rookie hype, I don't think I could do this in a lineup start 10.
That's fair. That's fair enough.
And it's not – listen, it's not saying that Westerns is not going to end up having a really good team. It's just for me, the way I think about things, in a lineup start 10, I'd rather the other side. So also kind of curious everybody's thoughts here. Not saying that Brandon and I are right. Like if you did have 102 and you had a contender, would you take the other side here in this? Or do you think 102 you'd much rather have your chance at your quarterback or the other side? Or would you rather say I want to go win with McCaffrey? Love to hear the comments on that too. All right, so let's get into – we only have a couple more deals here, maybe even one. All right, yeah, Pest City, another new patron member. Brandon, 12-team half PPR, lineup start 10. Pest City is receiving Chris Olave and a 25 first, speaking of the 25 first class. Sending away Chig. He's sending away Chig. He's also getting 2 24s. Also, the crazy part here, these are not from teams that are being traded here. So mixing it up is getting the Chig and the 224 first side. Pest City, new patron to Savage. Or I'm not Savage, the South Harmon. And he's also getting Chris Olave and a 25 first. His first deal on the trade show. Brandon, for you, Chris Olave or a 25 first, obviously kicking it down the road, or Chig and a 24 first, 224 first, 12-team half PPR lineup start 10. Let's just assume there's a tight end premium on here, but obviously if it's half PPR, it's not going to be anything egregious. So what is your thoughts here?
I feel like the value side is Pest City got it.
Fully agree.
Right. Like, let's just say 224 first for Olave is a little steep, but fine. And then a 25 first for Chig, like a first for Chig, that's kind of silly. Like I don't think anybody's paying a first for Chig, even a future 2025 first at this point. Like I think his highest value is probably like a second round pick.
I would agree.
But saying all of that, I kind of like the mixing it up side. I know like Olave and what he is. I also know that I have 2 bites at an apple that are going to happen before that 25 first matures.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of like the Chig and the 224 side because like with one of those picks, even the back half pick, I could probably go buy a Brandon Ayuk. I could go buy a Jerry Jeudy.
Mm-hmm.
I could buy. Basically, what I'm saying is I could buy a receiver that's going to produce in a lineup league very similar to Chris Olave. So that's where my it's not just in the vacuum looking at the trade. It's looking at the assets that Mixing It Up has and what they can do potentially with those pieces. I think is that 2025 first is going to be really hard to move right now.
I agree with that part. So here's what I would say. I think this trade, the more I look at it,
it's a good deal for both sides.
I agree with you too. The more I look at it, like the more I just start like Zach Galifianakis this thing. Like, okay, so every pick in this deal is not one that these guys own, right? So even Pest City's getting back Rask 7's pick. So to your point, Brandon, right? I think here's where I struggle with it, right? And I am a guy that in half PPR, I'm happy to move off of a Chris Olave type because I think it's replaceable in half PPR and it's starting 10. So in this league, you're either looking at 2 receivers and the 2 flexes with the Superflex, or you're looking at the 3 receivers with the 1 flex and the Superflex. But Olave, I'll move. Here's the thing. I would need to move Olave. I'm basically with all receivers that are not the Chase and Jefferson and half PPR. CeeDee Lamb's probably a little trickier. But anything south of that, like starting A.J. Brown, definitely Olave, Garrett Wilson, you give me 2 liquid first and you give me any type of a plus, I'm in, right? So if this was Olave for the 2 first and Chig, like, okay, I don't even think twice.
Right.
And to your point, right, the 24s will move a lot more in season this year. Agree with that too. I also think the fact that these are not teams that are in the deal, like who knows, maybe J.P. Kenny 21 and Jay Bueno are picks that are, more lottery ticket types. But here's what I do think what's interesting about Pest City and why I think I'm still going to lean this side. So I think 2 first and Olave, I would lean the first, but it's a fair deal. The fact that you're getting the 25, right? So Olave with Carr coming over, I think could produce a lot better this season. But I think the big thing is the 25 first you do have to sit on, but like here's what I want to say. Ross K7 has sent away his 25 first, and it's getting tossed around. Typically, these are the 25 first that I want to have because this person has just invested his whole entire team into now and probably is not built right. If you're trading in a lineup start 10, you're 25 first right now, you better have gotten an absolute steal because who knows what your team's going to look like in 25. Like, I can see a scenario where in the offseason now this 25 first, if it's a bad team, starts to move. To your point, this year, it's a dead asset. But it could pay off down the road, and the 224s for Olave is neutral. Chig doesn't move the deal that much. I'm with you. I think overall the deal is very fair. Like if you told me you want one side or the other, I could make the case either way. Man, it's tough. I think, though, that I would lean the other side because the 25 first in value. But if you told me you want to have your first now and you think that these teams are worth betting against, I could get behind that side too.
Yeah, Olave is the best player in the deal. It's the best asset in the deal. I think we both agree. Olave is the best asset.
Mm-hmm.
As of as of this moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
That could certainly change because we don't know where any of those picks are. So we're saying Olave is the best asset right now.
Easy, yes.
I think, like from a dynasty process side, I think what Mixing It Up did was give himself some outs. Now,
Correct.
what he does with those he or she does with those outs is completely going to
Up to them.
change maybe how you look at this deal. And like I said, you could maybe trade one of those 2024 first. If you know that one of the teams is loaded. Maybe you go trade it right now and go try to get a Brandon Ayuk, a Jerry Jeudy type wide receiver. And now all of a sudden, Chig, Jeudy, and a 24 first, or Olave, the 25 first. Now I feel like I got a little bit more leverage. So I can understand, like, again, I think it really just depends on which way, like, again, best asset is Olave, but I think the better process is the Mixing It Up because you have more, you can navigate a little bit more, less rigid than with the Olave piece, right? If you just put Olave on the block, Okay, what are you going to get? Maybe the same assets that you just unloaded?
Yes, that's a good point. I almost want to pull this up just to see.
And again, I think both sides probably got what they wanted, right? I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm not without any context. So, if you're in the comments, Pest City, or mixing up, please let us know. Please tell us we screwed this up. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say Pest City probably has 4, maybe 5 first round picks.
Okay,
and probably was trying to.
That was what I was going to get at. So here's what I want to say. Right, with all these picks coming through that are not owned by these two players. So if Pest City, right, if you're Pest City and those were the 2 extra 24s you had, and you send them to mixing it up, and mixing them up is in a 24 pick horde mode, like then I'll say okay. Like if this puts mixing it up to 4 or 5 or 6 24 first, I'm taking that side. I want those extra shots at the board, right? Now, if you're Pest City and you're saying I still have 2 or 3 24s, but you can have these 2 and we'll just see what happens, and I think Olave's worth it, I'm more on board on that side. And if you're someone that's picking up 25 cheaply right now, I think I can get on board with that side too. So like this one, I'll say this. I could see this going a lot of different ways. In a vacuum with what I view value-wise, Olave is the best player in the deal. The 25 first makes it more valuable on that side. The 24 first, right? If one of those picks becomes Caleb, Drake May, Marvin Harrison Jr., I'm already leaning that side with whatever that 24 first could be. But the thing is, if it's not if neither one of those are top 3 picks, like Olave is going to be in the conversation next year, very likely of 104, 105, 106. So if we fast forward a year from now and none of those are top 3, Olave will beat the 24, and then that extra 24 and the 25 are going to be very close unless those are early picks. So that's part of my long-term process on why I want the Olave side, but there's a lot of intricacies that could change this deal, I think, overall. So I'm curious everyone's thoughts here, too, on this deal, because that was a new patron, Pest City, and I thought a very good deal. So, Brandon, appreciate you hopping on, man. What was your thoughts overall on the trade show today?
There was some really good, and there was one that we obviously, gave a little bit of harder critique. I mean, it's pick season, folks. The biggest thing I could tell you is before you click send or accept, more so than send, like if you've got the early picks, send them. Send the offers that are crazy and wild. You have no idea what someone's going to accept. We saw it tonight. Literally, Bijan get traded for 2 late first. It's crazy.
Criminal.
Like that's criminal. But then you also have trades where you got these later first and you're not sure what to do. Like send the offer. And if you're on the other side, take a deep breath and look at what can you do with that pick if you bring on that 23 first. Don't just take on 23, 24, 25 first without some level of plan, whether that's holding them, whether that's using them to liquidate to use something else. Like just take a deep breath. It's May 5th, May 6th. Like we still don't have football for 4 more months. You have 4 more months to build your team. You don't need to build it completely out tonight.
That's a big point too. Do not look at your starting lineup right now on May 6th when this is being aired, Saturday morning, and say, man, if I just had one more starting receiver, this team could win it all. And then trade away 2 24s that you didn't need to that could end up being mid to early for Chris Olave. Now, if that's not the process and you think these 24s are more mid to late and that 25 is going to be a good pick and you got Chris Olave, understood it. But you don't have to make a starting lineup today. We have so much time until August. So great point, Brandon. I hope everybody enjoyed the trade show. I thought there were some really good trades here. Let us know what you thought about my trade and Ray's trade. It was a big trade that we made in the Royal Rumble. Thought it got some people talking and thinking today. A lot of really good trades. A couple new patrons that were on the show here. So if you do want your deals featured on the show, patreon.com/South Harmon. $1 a month will get you in the door. We got some things coming to South Harmon, Koopa Troopa, bringing some stuff. So stay tuned for some big announcements here in the near future. This will come to you on Saturday morning. The following week, we will start having 2 trade shows, one on Saturday morning and some other time throughout the week once Mike gets the schedule situated. So be on the lookout for that. One last thing. We're going to start doing some of these best ball underdog drafts. Make sure you're checking that out. Go take a look at the Destination Devy page. If you use our code, if you're new to Underdog Draft and you want to do best ball redraft leagues, make sure you're using the promo code 4DChess. With $100, you'll get $100 back. Anything from $10 and more, they will match you 100%. So if you want to win some money and do some best ball redraft to get your mind into the redraft mindset as far as what the values are, ADPs are, make sure you're doing that. Other than that, Brandon, that's all I got, man. Anything you want to say, anything you want to plug on the Destination Devy side before we get up out of here?
Make sure you subscribe to the newsletter. It's free. allgas.beehive.com. That's Beehive, Beehiiv. I had to think about that one for a second.
Yeah.
allgas.beehive.com. Comes out every Friday morning. It's free. Hits your email inbox. A lot of stuff from Mike and Adam, along with the other Destination Devy content creators. It is something that I put together and deliver to you, the viewer, the content consumer, but it is really a team effort that puts together some really good content for you guys each and every week.
Yeah, absolutely. Another great plug, Brandon. If you are into written content, it is free premium content. Best way I could describe that to you. Brandon does.
We should be charging. We should be charging you guys.
At some point, I would imagine Ray does, but until then, you should be in on the freemium that Ray's offering. So yeah, all the Destination Devy content creators do post something in there. So make sure you're subscribing to the Destination Devy newsletter. Actually, as soon as we're done with this trade show, Brandon, I'm going to go write something up on the 23 class for you to consume. So make sure you're checking that out. But other than that, appreciate everyone tapping in. If you're new to the channel, please go down, like, and subscribe. If you don't want to hit up the Patreon, totally understand that. But just give us a like, follow the channel, hit the subscribe button, leave us a comment, tell us how you thought the deals went, what we made the grades of. But other than that, we will see you back here, same time, same place, for the 4D Chess Dynasty Trade Show. We're out of this thing. Peace.